Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Aliens made rules to stop us, we built a warship against unstoppable force. The message came on a Tuesday. All across Earth, every screen flickered to the same image, a group of beings that clearly weren't human. Some had too many eyes, others had skin that shimmered like oil on water, a few looked almost human, except for small details that made them more wrong than if they'd had tentacles. Commander Jack Miller watched from the Pentagon's main control room, his coffee forgotten in his hand. 20 years in the military hadn't prepared him for this. "We are the Galactic Council," said the alien in the center. Its voice was oddly smooth, as if it had studied human speech for years. "We have watched your world for some time. You have reached the point where we must make contact." The alien paused, its 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "You may join our community of worlds, or you may remain alone. The choice is yours, but it must be made now, within hours." Miller found himself on a transport plane headed to the United Nations. As Earth's leading military strategist, his presence had been requested at the emergency meeting with the aliens, who had landed their ship in the middle of Central Park. "They could have appeared anywhere," said General Porter, who sat across from Miller on the plane. "Why New York?" Miller stared out the window. "They wanted to make a point. They know our power structures." The meeting room at the UN felt too small for what was happening. Miller sat 3 seats away from the Secretary General, watching as the alien delegation entered. They moved with strange grace, as if gravity didn't quite affect them the same way. The lead alien, who called itself Ambassador Trail, stood at the center of the room. It was tall and thin, with skin like polished bronze and those unsettling 4 eyes. "The Galactic Council has maintained peace across 3 spiral arms for 12,000 years, Trail said. "We achieved this through strict regulations on military development." Miller noticed how the alien's gaze kept returning to him, not to the world leaders, but to him, a military man. "To join the Council, Earth must agree to our primary treaty: no species may build warships above Class 4 capabilities." The Secretary General leaned forward. "And what exactly is Class 4? Trell made a gesture, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed specifications for ships, weapon systems, and power outputs, all with hard limits. Miller studied the hologram, his eyes narrowing. The limits were just above Earth's current military technology, almost as if they were designed specifically to contain human advancement. "Why these specific restrictions?" Miller asked, speaking out of turn. All 4 of Trell's eyes focused on him. "For peace." "That's not an answer," Miller said, ignoring the Secretary General's warning glance. Trell's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "There are threats in this galaxy that require management. The Council has found that unrestricted military development leads to disaster." "What threats?" Miller pressed. "The most significant is what we call the tide," Trell said after a pause. "But that is Council business, not for potential members to concern themselves with." Over the next week, Earth's nations debated the alien offer. Miller spent his time studying every word, every gesture the aliens had made. Something felt wrong. "They're hiding something," he told General Porter as they walked through the temporary military camp set up near the alien ship. "These restrictions aren't about peace, they're about keeping us weak." "Maybe, but what choice do we have? They've offered us technology, medicine, access to other worlds at the price of our ability to defend ourselves," Miller countered. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with one of the smaller aliens, a being named Vel, who served as Trell's assistant. "Pardon me," said Vel, its voice higher and more mechanical than Trell's. "I was admiring your military structure, very efficient." Miller studied the alien. Unlike Trell, Vel seemed genuinely curious. "Thank you. I hope we'll have the chance to learn from your people as well." "Oh yes," Vel said, its eyes blinking rapidly. "The Council has much to teach species like yours." It paused. "Though not all Council knowledge is shared equally. What do you mean by that? Miller asked. Vel seemed to realize it had said too much. Nothing of importance. Good day, Commander, it hurried away. 3 days later, Earth's nations voted to accept the Council's terms. Miller stood at the back of the room as the treaty was signed, watching the satisfaction in Trell's 4 eyes. Later that night, Miller found himself assigned as Earth's military liaison to the alien delegation. His first duty was a tour of the alien ship. The vessel was enormous inside, with corridors that seemed to bend in ways that hurt his eyes. Trell led the tour, pointing out technology that made Miller's military mind race with possibilities and restrictions. This propulsion system, Trell explained, gesturing to a pulsing blue core, allows travel between stars in days rather than centuries. You will be granted limited versions of this technology. Limited? Miller asked. Class 4 approved, Trell said smoothly. Sufficient for commerce and cultural exchange, but not for serious military applications. Miller noted Trell's eyes narrowing slightly. The Council finds that most species are happier focusing on arts and sciences rather than weapons. As they continued the tour, Miller noticed a sealed door unlike the others. This one had markings that glowed red. What's in there? He asked. Council security matters, Trell said quickly. Not relevant to Earth's integration. Miller made a mental note of the door's location. Something about Trell's tone had changed, there was tension there. 6 months passed. Earth began receiving its first approved alien technologies. Medical advances cured 3 major diseases, and new energy systems made fossil fuels obsolete almost overnight. But Miller remained uneasy. Now an admiral overseeing Earth's compliance with Council restrictions, he had access to all reports about alien activities, and something wasn't adding up. They're scanning our military installations constantly, he told his new assistant, Lieutenant Ryan. Not just checking for compliance, they're assessing our capabilities in detail. Ryan, young but sharp, nodded. I've noticed they're particularly interested in how quickly we adapt their technology. Miller tapped his desk. Almost like they're afraid of what we might do with it. That night, Miller used his security clearance to access the sealed section of the alien database. What he found made his blood run cold. Internal Council communications referred to Earth as a potential problem species with concerning development factors. One message from Trell to the Council leadership stood out: humans display unusual creativity in weapons design. The standard restrictions may not be sufficient long-term. Recommend consideration of the Oversight Protocol. Miller didn't know what the Oversight Protocol was, but he didn't like the sound of it. Even more troubling were the fragmented references to the tide that Trell had mentioned. From what Miller could piece together, it wasn't just a threat, it was a world-ending force that had destroyed hundreds of civilizations. And, for some reason, the Council seemed more interested in containing it than defeating it. As Miller shut down his terminal, he made a decision: Earth needed to know what they were really dealing with. If the Council was holding humanity back from defending itself against a genuine threat, then perhaps it was time to start bending some alien rules. He would need allies, both human and possibly non-human. Vel, the curious alien assistant, might be a start, and he'd need scientists who could understand the Council's technology well enough to find its weaknesses. Because if Miller's suspicions were correct, Earth had just signed away its right to survive. 5 years passed since the aliens first came to Earth. Life had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The skies above major cities now showed strange ships coming and going. Alien technology had made many things better: sickness was down, energy was clean, and food was plenty. But Admiral Jack Miller knew the cost of these gifts. Earth's military power remained frozen, stuck just above where it had been when the Council arrived. Anytime human scientists tried to build something too powerful, Council observers would appear with friendly but firm reminders about the treaty. Miller sat in his office at the United Earth Defense Command, reading reports. His hair had more gray now, and lines marked his face. The door opened, and Lieutenant Ryan walked in, now a full commander himself. "Sir, Dr. Reeves is here to see you," Ryan said. Miller nodded. "Send her in." Dr. Emily Reeves was Earth's top scientist working with alien technology, smart and direct. She had been helping Miller quietly investigate the Council's true plans. "I found something," she said without greeting, placing a small device on Miller's desk. "We need to use this now before they detect it." Miller touched the device, and a hologram appeared between them. It showed stars, planets, and what looked like a dark cloud moving slowly across the map. "What am I looking at?" Miller asked. "I accessed the Council's deep archives," Reeves said in a low voice. "This is the tide they mentioned. It's real, Jack, and it's destroyed hundreds of worlds." Miller studied the map. "What exactly is it?" "Some kind of force that eats everything, planets, stars, life. The Council has tracked it for thousands of years, and they're fighting it," Reeves said, laughing without humor. "That's the thing, they don't fight it. They run from it. They sacrifice outer worlds to slow it down while their core worlds stay safe." Miller felt cold. "And Earth? We're in its path, maybe 30 years away from contact." Miller stood and walked to the window, looking at the alien ships above the city. "Why didn't they tell us?" "Because of this," Reeves said, changing the hologram. Now it showed Council reports translated to English. "They've been studying us. They think humans have unusual problem-solving skills and aggression levels. We adapt too quickly. We're too willing to fight. That's why the restrictions," Miller realized. "They're afraid of what we might do if we had their technology." "There's more," Reeves said. "I found patterns in the data about the tide. It has a structure, Jack, a weakness. I think it could be defeated with the right weapon, but building that weapon would break the treaty." "Then they can't know," Miller replied simply. The room fell silent as everyone considered what he was suggesting. "Where would we even build such a ship?" someone asked. "Mars," Reeves said. "We have mining operations there already. The Council doesn't watch them as closely as Earth facilities." Commander Torres studied Miller's face. "You're asking us to risk everything. If the Council discovers we're breaking the treaty, they might cut us off completely, or worse. And if we do nothing," Miller countered, "the tide will definitely destroy us. In 30 years, the Council has already written Earth off." After hours of debate, the vote was unanimous. Project Defiance would begin in secret. 3 months later, Miller stood on the surface of Mars watching as massive machines dug into the red soil. Officially, this was a new mining operation to extract rare materials. In reality, they were building an underground shipyard. Reeves stood beside him in her spacesuit. "The Council's observer ships make their Mars flyby every 14 days, we'll need to be careful with energy signatures," Miller nodded. "How long until we have a working prototype?" 2 years for the basic ship, maybe 5 for the complete weapon system. I've got our best people working on it, using everything we've learned from the Council's tech." "Will it work?" Miller asked. Reeves looked up at the stars. "In theory, the tide has a quantum structure that should be vulnerable to the right kind of gravitational disruption. No one's tried it before, because the Council avoids any research in that direction." "Why would they avoid researching a weapon against their greatest enemy?" Miller wondered. "I don't know," Reeves admitted, "but I found references to something called the Makers in their oldest files. Whatever the tide is, I think the Council is afraid of more than just it." As they walked back to the Mars base, Miller felt the weight of their secret. Earth was gambling everything on a ship that might not work against an enemy they barely understood, while hiding from supposed allies who might become enemies. They had no choice. When faced with extinction, humans didn't surrender, they fought back, even if they had to break every rule in the galaxy to do it. The red dust of Mars swirled around the massive hidden entrance as it slowly opened. Admiral Miller's transport settled onto the landing pad, its engines powering down. This was his 10th visit to the secret shipyard in the past year, but the sight still amazed him each time as the airlock cycled. Dr. Reeves waited for him inside. 2 years had passed since they began Project Defiance. "Welcome back, Admiral," she said as he removed his helmet. "You're just in time for the power core test." They walked through wide tunnels carved deep into the Martian landscape. Hundreds of workers moved around them, carrying equipment or studying screens. All of them had been carefully chosen for both their skills and their loyalty. "How's progress?" Miller asked. "Good and bad," Reeves replied. "The ship's hull is nearly complete. We've successfully built most systems using modified Council tech. Tom is keeping the Council observers distracted with his fake mining operations," Miller noted. Tom Wilson was their security expert, a man who could make anyone believe almost anything. His fake mining facility on the surface kept the occasional Council inspector satisfied. "And the bad news?" Miller asked. Reeves stopped at a massive window overlooking the main construction bay below them. Standing there was the skeleton of an enormous ship, easily 10 times larger than anything Earth had built before. "The weapons system is proving difficult," she admitted. "The gravitational disruptor requires power levels we are struggling to maintain." Miller studied the ship. Unlike the smooth, elegant Council vessels, the UES Defiance was angular and intimidating. It looked like what it was, a warship built by humans who refused to accept extinction. "Will it be ready in time?" Miller asked. "It has to be." In a small office above the Martian surface, Tom Wilson entertained a Council inspector named G. The alien was tall, with 6 limbs, and seemed constantly uncomfortable in Mars gravity. "As you can see," Tom said, pointing to mining charts that were entirely made up, "our extraction of rare minerals has increased by 40% since last quarter." G studied the charts with 3 of his eyes while the other 3 scanned the room. "Impressive output, yet your energy consumption is unusually high," Tom laughed casually. "Mars is cold. Keeping our people warm takes power." Indeed, G placed a small device on the table. "We've detected unusual readings from this region. Deep scans show large empty spaces beneath the surface." "Tom," he said, "I would like to see these storage caves." "Of course," Tom replied, already planning which of the fake storage areas to show the inspector tomorrow morning. "I need to prepare the transport," G agreed. But Tom could tell the alien wasn't fully convinced. As soon as G left, Tom sent an urgent message to Miller, "They're getting suspicious. Need better cover story." Deep underground, the first test of the Defiance's power core was about to begin. Miller and Reeves stood in the control room, surrounded by engineers. "If this works," Reeves explained, "we'll have enough power for both the ship systems and the gravitational disruptor." "And if it doesn't?" Miller asked. "Then we're back to the drawing board," she said grimly. The countdown began. The core, built using a combination of Earth technology and stolen Council designs, hummed to life. The screen showed power levels rising steadily. "Looking good," one engineer said. "Approaching 50% capacity." Miller felt hope rising, then alarms began to sound. "Power fluctuation," someone shouted. "The containment field is destabilizing." Reeves moved quickly, typing commands into her console. "Shut it down now." The core powered down just before disaster. When the dust settled, Reeves looked exhausted. "What happened?" Miller asked. "The Council's tech isn't designed to produce this much power," she explained. "They've built-in limitations we didn't see." Miller slammed his fist on the railing. "They thought of everything." "Not everything," came a quiet voice from the door. Everyone turned to see Vel standing there. Guards immediately raised their weapons, but Miller waved them down. "How did you get in here?" "You're Mr. Wilson isn't the only one who can create distractions," Vel said, walking forward slowly. "I've suspected what you were doing for some time. Are you here to stop us?" Miller asked, tensing. Vel's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "No, I'm here to help you." Later in a secure room, Vel explained, "The Council fears humans because you question everything. Most species accept the Council's rules without asking why, but not you. I've served the Council for 200 years, Vel said. Long enough to see patterns, long enough to wonder why we never fight the tide. And why don't you?" Miller leaned forward. "Because the Council didn't create the technology that holds our civilization together," Vel said simply. "They found it thousands of years ago. They don't fully understand how it works, only how to use it, and they're afraid of breaking it." Reeves realized, exactly the gravitational technology you're trying to build. The Council has records of similar weapons used against the tide long ago. They worked, but had side effects. "What side effects?" Miller asked. "The records aren't clear, but the Council leadership believes these weapons may have damaged space itself." Miller and Reeves exchanged glances. "Is that why you're here, to warn us off?" Vel made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "I'm here because I believe extinction is worse than risk. The Council would rather sacrifice Earth than try something dangerous, and you don't agree?" "I've grown to respect humans," Vel admitted. "You're stubborn and sometimes frightening, but you're also brave in ways my people have forgotten." Vel pulled out a small crystal and placed it on the table. "This contains technical data about the tide structure and proper designs for the power system you're trying to build." Reeves picked up the crystal, her eyes wide. "This could save us months of work." "There's something else you should know," Vel said, looking troubled. "The tide is changing course. It's moving faster than predicted. Your Earth now has perhaps 5 years, not 30. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Can we build the ship in time?" Miller asked. Reeves studied the data from the crystal, her face lighting up with understanding. "With this, yes, but we'll need to work day and night." "Then that's what we'll do," Miller said, standing up. He turned to Vel. "What happens to you when the Council discovers you've helped us?" "That depends on whether you succeed," Vel said simply. "If you fail, we all die anyway." 3 days later, the power core hummed to life again. This time, there were no alarms. The energy readings climbed steadily until they reached 100%. In the control room, Reeves smiled for the first time in weeks. "We have power." Across the shipyard, workers cheered. Miller looked at the massive ship taking shape below. They still had much to do, but now they had a real chance. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered, "Install the weapon systems." Above them on the surface of Mars, Tom Wilson continued his dance of deception with the Council observers, buying time with fake reports and distractions. But everyone knew the truth: sooner or later, the Council would discover what they were building. The race was on to complete the Defiance before that happened, before the tide arrived, before humanity's time ran out. Alarms blared throughout the underground Mars base. Admiral Miller ran down the corridor toward the command center, his heart pounding. After 3 years of secrecy, their time had run out. "Status report," he shouted as he entered the room. Commander Ryan looked up from his display, his face grim. "Council ships have entered Mars orbit, 7 vessels, including what looks like a heavy cruiser." On the main screen, Miller could see the alien ships taking position above the red planet. Their smooth, oval shape seemed to glow against the dark sky. "Have they sent any messages?" Miller asked. "Just one," Ryan replied. "Cease all unauthorized activities immediately." Miller turned to Dr. Reeves, who had been working non-stop for days. "How close is the Defiance to being ready?" "The main systems are online," she said, exhaustion clear in her voice. "The gravitational disruptor is installed but untested. We need another week, minimum." "We don't have a week," Miller said. He activated the base-wide communication system. "All personnel, this is Admiral Miller. Begin launch preparations. We're leaving in 3 hours." Vel, who had become a permanent fixture on the project, approached Miller. The Council won't just let you leave, they'll try to disable the ship before it can clear Mars' orbit. I know, Miller said. That's why we need a distraction on the surface. Tom Wilson faced the Council delegation that had landed near the fake mining facility. Ambassador Trell himself had come, flanked by 6 armed guards. His 4 eyes showed no emotion. Mr. Wilson, Trell said coldly, your deception ends today. We know what you've been building beneath the surface. Tom smiled his most charming smile. I have no idea what you're talking about. We're just miners here. Our scans show a massive vessel under construction, a warship that violates at least 15 Council regulations. Trell stepped closer. Where is Admiral Miller? I believe he's on Earth. Tom lied smoothly, would you like me to call him? Trell made a gesture, and his guards raised their weapons. Take us to the entrance of the underground facility now. Tom looked at his watch, he needed to stall for another 2 hours. I'd be happy to give you a tour, but I'll need to check with Earth Command first. Council protocols, you understand? One of Trell's eyes twitched slightly. You test my patience, human. Just following the rules, Tom replied, still smiling. You taught us how important rules are. Deep in the shipyard, the UES Defiance hummed with power as final preparations were made. The ship was massive, nearly a kilometer long, with a dark hull that seemed to swallow light. Unlike the elegant Council ships, the Defiance looked like what it was, a weapon. Inside the bridge, Miller watched as his crew took their stations. Many were young, Earth's best and brightest, trained in secret for this mission. Main engines are green, reported the pilot, a young woman named Lisa Cooper. All systems show ready. Miller turned to Reeves. What about the gravitational disruptor? Power flow is stable. She said, but we haven't calibrated the targeting system. We can't be sure it will work against the tide, we'll have to figure that out on the way. Miller said, and he activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, secure for launch. We have company waiting for us upstairs. As the crew strapped in, someone approached Miller. The Council ships will try to disable your engines first, their weapons are designed to minimize casualties. Good to know, Miller said. Any other advice? Yes, Vel said, seriously. Don't destroy any Council ships if you can avoid it. Many aboard them don't know the truth about the tide. Miller nodded. We're not here to fight the Council. We're here to save everyone from the tide, whether they want our help or not. On the surface, Tom had finally run out of ways to delay. Trell and his guards now stood at the sealed entrance to the underground base. Open it, Trell demanded. Tom looked at his watch again. They needed just 15 more minutes. You know, Ambassador, I've always wondered something, why does the Council really care what we humans do? You have thousands of worlds, we're just one small planet. Because your kind doesn't know when to stop, Trell said. You push boundaries that should remain untouched, like fighting the tide. Tom asked, Trell, your 4 eyes widened slightly. You know nothing about the tide. We know the Council uses planets like Earth as shields. Tom continued, his friendly mask dropping. We know you found your technology, not built it, and we know you're afraid of what might happen if someone actually tried to stop the tide instead of running from it. For a moment, Trell seemed speechless, then he raised his hand and his guards aimed their weapons. Open the door, Mr. Wilson. This is your final warning. Tom sighed and pressed his hand to the scanner. Your funeral. The massive doors began to open, revealing the tunnel leading down to the shipyard. But as they did, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. Frel looked down in alarm. What is happening? Tom stepped back, smiling again. That would be our ship launching. I'd move if I were you. The ceiling of the underground shipyard split open as massive doors retracted. Clouds of red dust billowed outward as the Defiance's engines ignited, lifting the enormous ship upward with incredible force. On the bridge, Miller gripped his chair as the ship shuddered around him. "Status, clearing the launch bay," Cooper reported. "Approaching surface level in 10 seconds. The view screen showed the red Martian landscape rushing toward them, then suddenly giving way to open sky as they burst through the surface. "Council ships detected," the tactical officer announced, "they're moving to intercept." Miller studied the display. 7 Council vessels had formed a blockade in orbit. "Full power to forward shields. Set course directly through their formation. Let's see if they're willing to fire on us."